What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the GTD episode. My name is Cameron Selby, and we are going to be breaking down Super Bowl 60 on the NFL DraftKings slate, our last slate of the year. It's been an incredible ride this year, our most profitable season of our lifetime doing this DFS stuff. We appreciate you guys tuning in if you have this far, wrapping up year number 2 or season number 2. If you aren't aware, we did create another channel called The Rough Draft, and Emery is taking a huge load of that, putting out all of our draft content. That's where we're going to be doing most of our stuff this year for the offseason in the draft topics. He's already covered the Senior Bowl. We're about to record our first mock post Super Bowl that will be released this next week. So I'm really excited to see, because that's been a killer start to that channel with 2 really successful videos already. We're capping off this season. We like talking about all kinds of stuff football related, whether it's college football, draft stuff, NFL offseason, power rankings, all that stuff. And on top of that, we're finishing out with DFS. All of the NFL related power rankings, off-season content for in terms of like pickups and transactions, and DFS content are going to be taking place on the Game Time Discussions channel, whereas the Rough Draft will be more so focused on the draft, how we do stuff. So please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you are new to this channel. Go over there. The link will be in the description below. Go and check out some of those videos. We are going to be pumping out a lot of that going forward. And then with this channel, we're going to take a little small week break and then get right into the outlook of the off season for each of the NFL teams, which that was how we started this channel. So going into year number 3 in that regard. So I'm excited. This is a fun Super Bowl matchup, a unique one. Seattle is a 5-point favorite. 45.5 total, and it's 2 teams that no one saw coming leading into this big game. So we're going to break down the NFL DFS slate for this, the showdown, break down how we're going to approach it, and then get into some final picks and predictions. So after that long-winded introduction, I'd say let's jump right into it. Before we do actually get into the slate, I do want to make sure y'all are aware, at least on this platform, every platform is pretty much doing all kinds of bonuses and free games and free picks and all that stuff. So like Prize Picks has a free square, Underdog has a free square and a ton of profit boosts. On top of that, you've got all these free pools. I know it looks very different on the app, but the web interface, there's like 4, 5, 6, 7 different NFL related pools for the Super Bowl. And then in terms of promotions, they have several things like earn a share of 60K if your lineup. I think this one's like your lineup consists of 5 scoring touchdowns. And then there's others that are going to be going free missions every day, except that. That's how you build on crowns and all that stuff. So I just want y'all to be aware that there are a lot of free stuff that they're trying to give out this week on all kinds of platforms. And so as you construct your lines, on top of that, there's 2 free contests for the Super Bowl itself. Just make sure you're putting in money, because you never know if you're going to get first place. And even if you do, you might as well get a little bit extra on top of that. So if you're going to play and you're going to get first place, you might as well maximize those returns on top of that, because why not? But yeah, so let's jump into the slate. Like I said, Seattle is a 5-point favorite. The scary thing about that spread for Seattle being -5, -5.5, depending on where you're looking, is that there has not been a 4-point favorite or higher in the Super Bowl that has covered since 2007. So we are going on 20 Super Bowls since before the undefeated potential Patriots Super Bowl, since there has been a big favorite that has covered. Every single game has been close. Maybe for the general public of things, then that's a good thing, because hopefully we're in store for a really, really good game. But it just feels like there's too much love for Seattle right now, and that might kind of change how you do things. It's going to be very interesting to go about it. But kicking it off, we're going to start out pretending that Seattle is the away team. We're going to go through some of the big names to discuss. But starting off, we'll filter to Seattle. We'll go through some of their pass catchers and some of the big names to discuss. And obviously, it gets more condensed now that we're in the Super Bowl thing. They're not as spreading out these snap counts and crazy things. But we have seen weird shit happen in the Super Bowl, where people come out of nowhere and throw touchdowns on trick plays and all these gadget stuff that goes on. This is where everybody maxes out the playbook and all that fun stuff. So even if they are barely getting on the field, you got some Javon Curse kind of games. You have these Jawan Jennings passing and receiving touchdowns. All these kinds of weird Super Bowl unsung hero David Tyree-esque players are always just been in these games historically. So we'll start off like that, but it always gravitates toward the now announced Offensive Player of the Year for this 2025 season, JSN or Jackson Smith-Njigba. he has just been as steady as they come throughout the entirety of the season. Essentially, outside of one game where they were just kicking Minnesota's ass so much that they didn't need to throw him the ball at all, he had been at least over 13 points in every single regular season game. And then when it comes down to the NFC title game, and then when it comes down to the NFC divisional round against the 49ers, similar thing where they were kicking their ass so much, 3 for 19 of the score is all you really needed for him and his contribution level in that game. But in games that are close, he just not only has the biggest floor, but he also has a massive, massive ceiling to where he has now put himself in the upper echelon of receivers in this game. Most notably in the NFC title game, going 10 for 153 on the score. I made the mistake of not going with the Puka plus JSN builds in the championship weekend just because I thought everybody else is doing this. They're both 80% owned. Like, you have to get different and take stands, and unfortunately that one did not work out. It was over by halftime. But at the end of the day, like, that's what wins big things, is going contrarian to the field. It's going to be really hard to not play him in this spot. I know maybe the ceiling might not be unlocked, but we've seen multi-touchdown games from wide receiver ones before in this. But on top of that, he's the ultimate gadget guy where they put him all over the field. His touchdown against the Rams, he lined up in the backfield and ran a scissor route to the corner of the end zone. So they line him up in all types of ways. This isn't just, hey, Christian Gonzalez is following him everywhere. This is, they're going to get him in space, make sure that he makes plays. And if they win this game, they should have a heavy dosage of Mr. JSN. Next up, you have Cooper Kupp, who later into the season had more of a consistent role. And that was kind of an unknown because they did trade for Rashid Shaheed, who we'll talk about in a second. But coming into the year, I hated him as an ADP of a top 100 player. And I was proven right in that regard. He, I think, only had more than 70 yards twice on the entirety of the season. But recently, in the postseason, back-to-back games with double digits, 5 catches for 60 yards in the NFC divisional round, and then followed that up with a championship performance against his former team, where he caught a touchdown, 4 for 36, and a solid six target share. And he's playing 70 to 80% of the snaps pretty consistently. He's on the field. 5,200 does seem tough, but it's not like there's a ton of floor plays in this game. Both of these teams, they have their guys up top, but they're very sporadic with who can go off. There's going to be some Jake Bobo touchdowns like there was last week. There's going to be some backup tight end work from Austin Hooper and now Elijah Arroyo, who's returned. There's kick return stuff. There's defensive special team stuff. All kinds of weird stuff that can happen. So 5,200 is a fine price. I'm very curious on what his ownership's going to be. I think he's just a floor play that if this is a lower scoring game and he catches, gets to that double digit threshold once again, I think that can be enough to pay off at this price tag. I really do. So I definitely think he's in the pool. Rashid Shaheed has not played nearly as much as one would think, but he has made those explosive plays. Last week, he actually did play 57% of the snaps, which was the most since week 16, which was the most since week 15. Only caught one pass. I think that was the first down of the game, was that 51-yard bomb. And then outside of that, he's just been the gadget return guy. He'll throw some rushing attempts in there. I remember a buddy of mine was like the 1.5 rushing yards or whatever it was a lock. And we were waiting for that rushing attempt. We knew it was coming, and it came, and he had no gain. And it was like, oh, well, I mean, for the most part, he's getting these kind of in space things, and he is the epitome of a guy that can break one at any moment. The thing is, the floor is very, very low. If you see these 2.6, these 1.8, 1.2, and since this is not a free square at like $1,000 to fit all these guys up top, you actually have to spend some money for it. I think his ownership's going to be down, and if that's the case, and he's sub 25% owned, this is an easy path to get overweight to on weird slates where you're looking for these crazy plays out of nowhere, touchdowns that can really pay off. And so it's a high risk, high reward play from him. Jake Bobo, I mentioned catching a touchdown. He's only had 4 catches on the season, but 2 of them have been in the postseason in back-to-back games. 1,600, I think he's already priced up to where I'm not really interested in him. Played 13 plays in each of the 2 games this past week. So blowout one game, close game the other. He played 13 regardless. Caught 1 for a touchdown. Then I don't see it. I don't see the reason to do that. I would rather go down or up if it was my opinion for him. So he's somebody I probably would X out. And then other than that, Derek Young, wherever he is, played one snap last week. Other than that, he's been a non-factor. Cody White, I think, has been a healthy scratch. He's been a DFS showdown deep ball winner before. I remember him catching a 60-yard touchdown when I spent 200 on him one time when there was injuries, and that was a fun time. But I don't see that being a thing this time. In terms of the tight end group I mentioned, AJ Barner, you got Elijah Arroyo, you got Eric Saubert, and it's kind of tough to navigate this because Elijah Arroyo, rookie tight end, has not played since week 11. It sounded like he was really close to coming back for the NFC Championship game, but he was a coach's decision inactive. So it wasn't like they held him out due to injury. It was a scratch. So just because he did have the healthy full week and a half-ish of practice in this 2-week layoff since the NFC title game, that he's not guaranteed to play. And if he's not, Eric Selbert, he's been on the field. He's 3 of the last 4 games, at least 50% of the snaps. He's $600. If you're looking for a punt play, it's not like New England's been amazing against tight ends. It's like they'll have the occasional games where nothing's really involved, but then they're playing teams that don't really involve their tight ends that much. But then there's also games where they've given up multiple touchdowns to tight ends that at least I've scrolled through over the last couple months. 600, if you think it's got to be a bunch high and one down low, you're looking for one guy to get the job done, that's a guy that could possibly, get in there. He might be the cheapest of the bunch that actually might be on the field somewhat consistently. Right now, RotoWire, which is a free tool, I usually use this for value, not for ownership anymore, because they're not that great, especially on showdowns. So I'd always be wary about the ownership there. But in terms of projection, they're pretty decent at projections and who the highest values are. And Eric Selbert is the 3rd highest value on the slate. So that just kind of shows how there's a lot of floor in a lot of guys. And so if you're trying to get that JSN captain but be different or fit all these guys up top, like that is one way to do so. It's not like there's anybody else in this range. Like other than him, 2,000 and below, it's really the backup tight end for New England, and then taking shots on like Jake Bobo, projected for 2, but he barely catches passes. So if you're gonna go Jake Bobo for 16, I might as well just save 1,000 more and go with Eric, who might be lower owned because he didn't catch any passes in the postseason, wasn't targeted. So it's just one of those things where all you need is one catch to pay off when you're sub 1,000. AJ Barner, though, he's been chalky on back-to-back slates, and I faded him, and it ended up being on the right side of things. They didn't really involve him a ton. He is their tush-push guy just for what it's worth. So if they get down to the 1, if there's anybody that's going to vulture a touchdown from Kenneth Walker now that Zach Charbonnet is no longer in the fold, it's going to be AJ Barner. So he's got that kind of equity going for him. He was pretty consistent at getting at least 25 yards, 4 targets a game in the back half of the season. He had some ceiling performances, like a 10-catch game against the Rams on the second occasion. He had a 10-catch game on the first occasion against the Rams in their near comeback win. He's had touchdown games. One of the other showdowns against the Rams caught a touchdown in their comeback attempt. And he had a tush-push opportunity there. So he's had fine moments, but his floor has been a lot lower than you would have liked. But that said, he's 4,800. He's going to be on the field. He actually played 96% of the snaps, which was a season high this past week. So if the game is close, $4,800. Again, the floor is not there, but there are not many floor plays on this entire slate. So that's the whole thing about this and going forward. Sam Darnold, the favorite to be the Super Bowl MVP. It's a little nerve-wracking because he's not really rushing for stuff, especially recently. And on top of that, I know he was dealing with the oblique injury. Feels like, especially after the second performance, I didn't think in a million years, if he was going to outplay Stafford, I thought it was going to be because Seattle's defense got to Stafford and it was just he had a really bad game holding on to the football and Sam was just fine, didn't turn the ball over. But no, he went blow for blow with him, went for nearly 350 and 3 touchdowns against the Rams, nearly 30 fantasy points. That's a really steep price for the quarterback position, though. I think he'll be the lower owned of the two quarterbacks, and he's not going to project as well. But I think he correlates better, in my opinion. So I think he's fine. I'm not really concerned about the opponent rank anymore. Again, it's a Super Bowl. Weird stuff happens. That said, the floor, there's been 3 straight games before that 30-point performance where he had less than 10 fantasy points. 2 of them, though, or most of them were big blowouts where they didn't really need him to do much. But now that there's only one running back in the fold, especially if New England's really good against a run game, they're going to have to get it going. And I don't expect Seattle to be completely stifled and not be able to move the ball at all. And so I think he'll have a really solid day. It just comes down to if he's involved on multiple scores. But even if he's only involved on one, he gets 15 to 17 fantasy points. That could still be enough. I'm not necessarily sold on this being a shootout game, but that's really how I see the Seattle side playing out. And then Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet's out. He left this game against the 49ers. He ends up going for 130 all. He ends up going for 135 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns with the hat trick. Big win that divisional round for us when we were overweight to him. And then follow that up with a really solid day. I know it was inefficient on the ground, but he was very, very good out of the backfield as a pass catcher. Once again, 111 all-purpose yards, got a touchdown in there. He's the favorite to score the first touchdown of the game. But again, New England's really good against running backs. They're second best against the position this year. They have given up some decent performances, like Derrick Henry went for multiple scores and a bunch of yards for him. James Cook did the same thing as well when they played Buffalo the second time. I just think he's very safe in terms of the touches. And on top of that, if he's going to be in a pass catching role as well, $9,800 seems fine. I think I prefer him over both quarterbacks. Like if I had to, I would rather go no quarterback than double quarterback. And that involves putting him in there as well, because I don't know if I have a scenario this week where I'm going to be comfortable fading JSN. Maybe I'm underweight to him at captain, but he's going to be in my lineup, and it's really hard to go boom, boom, boom. And if that's the case, I'd rather just fit 3 of the 4 up top and pick a quarterback in addition to those other 2, rather than try to go boom, 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 and then you really have no more money for anything else, because it's not like you're going to be able to stack Drake May at all, and barely going to be able to have any other awesome options with Sam Darnold in the fold. And last guy I want to mention, George Hilani. He was the only other running back outside of 1 snap to get snaps, and he played a decent amount, 34% of the snaps, 23 total, and he only had 3 carries, but he had 4 targets. And that's really important considering the fact that New England, I think they were bottom 10 allowing receptions to running backs this year, if I remember correctly. But for $2,400, I think that's a pretty decent leverage. I'm not saying he's going to be efficient, but he will be on the field. The second play of the game, he came in and got a touch against the Rams in the title game. So, because I remember sending a text to a buddy of mine, and I was just like, Mike McDonald, I was like, oh, Clint Kubiak still hates Kenneth Walker, because George was immediately involved. And yes, it did expand to where Kenneth Walker was getting most of the touches, but it's not like there wasn't opportunities for George Hilani. So I still think he has the 5+ touch up. I still think he has the 5+ touch upside. I don't think he has touchdown upside, but you don't need that at this price. I think he's one of the better spins, 3K and below. So if you needed somebody really cheap, that's a decent option, I would say. And then on the New England side, we'll select them because they have a lot of pass catchers to talk about. And it's really, really tough to gauge where we're going when it comes to New England receivers. Yeah, because there's actually 5 of them. Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 1. But it's not like he has that because of snap share opportunities. He rarely is going over 6 targets a game. I think he's only exceeded that twice since October. I think that's October, maybe beginning of November. Regardless, it's been a long time, other than these big games against the Baltimore Ravens and that really nice Sunday night game, and then that big day against the Jets. I think there was a lot of receivers out that week, if I remember correctly. No. Actually, that was that one. So he's had like 3 games where he's gone bananas, and of course that is in the field of play. But his props are really low. His price is really high. I think as a result, his ownership might be down, but I think he's just he's going to be really, really hard to fit because I'd rather get up to both running backs. I'd rather get up to both quarterbacks. I'd rather get up to JSN. And if you're trying to fit 3 of those guys in, you can't get to Stephon unless you just punt a 0 and you think this is going to be a shootout. You just need all the biggest guys. Doesn't have enough of a floor for me at 8,600. It's not a great matchup, and I think it's really tough. And it's not like Drake May, if you've played him this year and you believe in him having a really solid day, that you've had to stack him with Stephon Diggs to have a really solid day because he has the ability on his legs, and he spreads the ball out pretty evenly to where it's just they take turns catching touchdowns. But Kayshon Boutte actually led the team in snaps. He had a really strong couple of performances in the wild card and divisional round. Caught 4 for 66, then 3 for 75, that one-handed touchdown against the Texans in the snow, but then followed that up in another bad weather game, but had 6 targets. So I'm not as concerned about the 1 for 6 in a bad weather game, in a low-scoring game. He had the opportunities. He led the team in snaps. So him being $5,600, he's right in the middle of a plethora of guys in that 4 to 6K range that all of them can catch a touchdown. All of them can go for 15, and they can all go for 2. As you can see by these scores, like he'll catch a touchdown, but then he'll be under 5. And then he'll have a solid day, have a really solid day, and then just have a big dud. So that's been the pretty much the epitome of the season for him. He doesn't really flirt with the 100-yard bonus that often. It's just more so whether or not he's scoring touchdowns, but he has been one of the touchdown leaders in this passing game this year. Matt Collins, he was the one when I first looked at the pricing that surprised me. Because I know he was on IR due to an injury, but he was available. He almost came back for the divisional round, and he was available for the NFC title game, and he went right back into playing most of the snaps on the field. 61%, second on the team, just 1 snap behind Kayshon Boutte. Only had 2 targets, but that was the one notable play in the second half was that I think it was a flea flicker. Pass to him in the snow before it got really awful late in the third quarter. I think he's going to be involved. I think he's a fine play. Even if he has that 5-point day like he did back in week 12, I still think that's fine for this price tag at 3,600. I bet you because of him and his snaps, most people are going to play him. I would be shocked if he wasn't the most popular guy 4K and below. If he's not, then that's massive leverage. But if I play that typical 3 lines that I typically do on a showdown slate, he's probably going to be in 2 of those lines because that's just too cheap for the amount of workload he has. He does have upside games recently before he did go down to an injury, had an 8-target game, a 9-target game. He's the perfect kind of guy that's just going to blow up this game. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. Only 2 touchdowns on the year, so it's not like he has touchdown equity a ton, but I just think his floor and his volume is pretty solid. Only 1 game, other than the snow game, where he did lead the team in receiving. He hadn't been below 4 targets since week 9. So very solid protection in the back half of the season. I think it's pretty safe, and I don't mind being on him at all. That said, Kyle Williams, I might X him out of the pool. He's just not involved anymore. And if all 5 receivers are healthy, I bet you he's dead last in terms of exciting opportunities. They're throwing him a deep ball every now and then, and whether or not it works out, cool. Like he had 3 different deep ball opportunities against Houston, didn't catch a single one. And then this past week, 23% of the snaps, but he had no targets. And so I just don't really have interest in him this week. That said, that could blow up in my face, but he is going to be less than, I would be shocked if he was more than 7% owned because his price tag it's not like he makes you fit a ton by putting him in. He is you're playing a crap ton of lines and you just try to get overweight to the guys you're taking stands on. Other than that, I'm not really interested in him. Demario Douglas, $400 more, but he's barely playing snaps too. That said, at least he's getting a target a game, but that's not enough for 3,200. If I can just 400 more, you get Matt Collins, who's going to be on the field all the time. I'd rather do that. I know he caught a touchdown early in that Houston game, Other than that, he hasn't done enough to have any kind of interest for me at $3,200. So that's pretty much the receiver room. That said, all of them have opportunities to score. I just am not buying, or you got to take stands on certain people, especially if you don't play a ton of lines. And that's just the route I'm taking is I'm probably going to be overweight to most of the New England receivers, but my favorite two are probably Kayshon Boutte and Matt Collins, just because it makes things easier and they're going to be on the field. Hunter Henry, this is my problem with him, is that he's just not consistent of a workload enough to roster. $7,000 is really, really tough to get to, especially on a slate like this when a lot of people are going to be playing three of the top four, which is JSN, both quarterbacks, and Kenneth Walker. Most people are going to probably jam three of those guys. There's a way to get to Hunter with that fourth one, but then you're punting two more, and his floor hasn't been there. He's had 17 total yards each of the last 2 weeks. That was following a game where he had 3 for 65 and a touchdown. Seattle's been not that great defending tight ends. He, I think, is their touchdown leader on the year in terms of receiving touchdowns. But I'm not. It's really tough to get to. I think he's like a last guy in more so than I'm going to. He's a core play. And if that's the case, then that's fine. One lineup out of three is going to get you overweight, in my opinion. But I just don't see him. The problem is, like, it's not like he's not going to project decent. It's also like he doesn't have a great floor. Ceiling-wise, I don't know if he really has that great of a ceiling. But if he catches a touchdown, he gets 15 points. Again, this is not going to be a shootout to me. So that's going to be optimal if he scores and has that, 5 for 50 or has one of those really solid days. Austin Hooper, on the other hand, he's on the field. Jack Westover is also on the field. I don't know. He's fine. $2,000. I think I'd rather get to George Kalani, but he's in the pool. If you want to build multiple lines, I'd rather do a little bit more balanced. He's had the occasional game where he's had multiple targets, but it's been a while since he's gone over 20 yards. He's only had one of those games since week 12, and even going further back, it was really like he was more involved in the first half of the season than he was the second half. But at least he's priced more decent to where he's filler salary. You're just hoping for 5 points to get you there. Looking for cheap guys because you're gonna have to play cheap guys. Like I said, 3K and below, he's probably the second or third best option. George Kalani is probably my favorite, and then other than that, it's Eric Saubert all the way down low, 1,400 cheaper. He's on the field just as much as Austin Hooper. That it just kind of depends on how your line fills out. But he's not really a guy that I'm forcing in. I'm just playing him if I got 2,200 left and I can't fit George Kalani. Don't want to get 100% exposure to him, and that is what it is. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and we're gonna go through some predictions. Again, 45.5 point total. I think this is an under game. I don't think it's an ugly one where it's just going to be similar to a Houston game where there could be points on the board, but it's all because the quarterbacks can't hold onto the ball. I think it is a just steady, grinded out kind of game. Both teams really good at controlling the clock. Low. I don't think either one's going to take chances. I think the priority is going to be taking care of the ball, and so I think this is a 21-17 kind of game. The thing that makes me concerned is I'm picking Seattle to win this Super Bowl. I think they're better mostly everywhere, but all the money's on Seattle. You got the historical context of not a single team covering and half of them not even winning outright, win by being at least a 4-point favorite. But I'm going to say this is an under. That's what I'm more comfortable in saying than picking the winner. And if that's the case, I'm looking for floor performances. The occasional boom guy is really what I'm looking into, and I'm going to ride with Seattle. The tough part is just going to be how much quarterback exposure do I want, and if I'm going to take a stand on just not playing one or the other. That's what we'll get to when we build in a couple seconds. But my lock of the slate is JSN. He's going to be the most popular. He's going to be the most popular captain probably. I don't know if I want to be overweight to him on captain, but I just can't play. If I'm playing three lines like I typically do, I'm not playing a line without him. I just can't. There's not enough up top that I'm forcing in, and he's just as safe as it comes to me. I think getting him in, leaving salary on the table is the best strategy. going into this game because a lot of people are going to want to play him and a quarterback / both plus Kenneth Walker. Like I mentioned, 3 of those 4 are in most people's lines. And so if you're going to do that, get different somewhere, whether that's leaving salary on the table, playing a low-owned play like a Kyle Williams or something like that is the best approach in my opinion. But JSN has to be in the line. In terms of fades, I'm going to take a stand on fading Stephon Diggs. He's just my least favorite of the spin-ups. And I don't see a scenario because I don't think there's a way, unless we get really, really weird at captain, that you can fit 4 of the guys up top. And I can try when we do some last builds to fit him in just to give a look. But I'd rather play Stevenson. I'd rather spend that for KW, both quarterbacks, JSN. If Diggs beats me, damn it. But I think his ownership is going to reflect being lower owned. And so this isn't a leverage thing. It's just that I don't trust the floor enough. And if the ceiling is there, I don't think there's enough people that are going to play him that hurts because I don't see a 100-yard day. I just see you caught 5 for 40 in the score. You got your 15 that panned out for people that picked you, but I don't think it kills you if you didn't play him. So with that said, I'm going to fade him at 86. And then my tournament play, I don't know what the ownership is going to be, but I'm very intrigued by Seattle defense / special teams at 4,400. They've been phenomenal, especially in the back half of the year. Unless they play the Rams, they're doing awesome. They had at least double-digit fantasy points in every single game other than the Rams games and Indy, where Indy, they only allowed 16 fantasy or against Indy back in week 15, only allowed 16 total points. All they did was just get 1 sack and 1 interception, but they barely allowed any yards. It was just a bad fantasy day for them. But the defense has been phenomenal. They've had multiple touchdowns. They've had 4 defensive / special teams touchdowns since week 13. Rashid Shaheed, part of it. But again, I think this is a lower scoring game. I can't see a scenario where New England is scoring 3 touchdowns. And if that's the case, they are a 20-point or less thing. I think that's in the pool. And because they're below 5K, I think it's very easy to play them. It's not like they're going to be unowned or underowned, but I think playing one of the 3 is going to be enough to be overweight, but I am probably going to be playing 2 of the 3. I think this is a grinded out game. New England's offensive line has been much worse in the postseason. They've been playing nonstop good defenses, and they've been gotten after. I think Denver's defense was optimal the week before that. Houston's defense was optimal the week before that. The Chargers, I think they had still 8 to 9 fantasy points as a defense, and I will take that every single day at just 4,400, but I think there's opportunity for more. Drake May's not holding on to the ball, and Mike McDonald is awesome against young quarterbacks. I think there's been, since 2023 started, this was the interesting stat for me. For Mike McDonald-led defenses since 2023, since he became the head coach for the Seattle Seahawks, they have played 6 quarterbacks below the age of 24. They have had 22 sacks in those 6 games, so averaging just about 3.5. Averaging just over 3.5. They've had 1 touchdown allowed, 8 interceptions. 1 to 8 touchdown interception ratio. I'm not saying that Drake May is just going to be completely garbage and awful and you should fade him with all your heart and might, but it's not like Drake May has been playing well enough to where, hey, he can break the chain and you should feel comfortable about that. He had 6 fumbles in the first 2 playoff games. On top of that, also had 2 interceptions. Last week, protected the ball, but 10 for 21, didn't even throw for 100 yards. He just got there with a rushing touchdown and having 65 yards on the ground in the Snow Bowl. And so I am very comfortable with Seattle's defense. I think their floor is very strong, and they have an opportunity for even more. And I'm even interested in some possible Seattle captain defense. That's really the way I see this game going and correlating with that. But as a quick bonus, my favorite fantasy prop for the Super Bowl slate is going to be Drake May under fantasy score. So on Underdog, 8.85. On Underdog, I think it was 18.85 as of recording. And on Prize Picks, it was 19. And to get there, he either needs a rushing touchdown or he needs multiple passing touchdowns plus all the rushing production that he typically gets. And I don't see him being involved and being that successful against this defense. I think it's a lower scoring game. I don't see New England scoring more than 2 touchdowns. If he's involved on both, then that's tough. tough stuff. Just got to live with it and cross your fingers that the rushing upside doesn't get him over. But a lot of stuff is just very volatile. There's a lot of floor plays. That's why all the props are just below 50 yards if you're not Kenneth Walker or JSN. And I just feel comfortable with Seattle's defense holding New England in check enough to where he doesn't have a strong fantasy day. And again, 18.85, 19. There's no bonuses also. So it's going to be tough to get there in my eyes. He hasn't done that once this postseason, and Seattle's defense playing lights out right now. So a little bit of correlation there, but that is my favorite prop for the Super Bowl slate. Obviously, we're going to be doing prop pick'ems, 4 picks, and live bets and stuff like that as well. Again, remember, they have discounts, they have bonuses, free squares, and all that fun stuff. So get over there and submit those final lines. Posting something in Discord if I come across a 4-pick I'm really feel comfortable with. Real quick, because I know I did forget to mention them, running back wise, Ramondre Stevenson, they basically ran him into the ground this past week, had 27 opportunities. Basically, they could not throw the ball in the fourth quarter because of how bad the weather was, and they just gave it to him every single time or threw the ball intentionally out of bounds to punt the football. He had 94% of the snaps. I don't think it's close to that this Super Bowl. I think it goes back to more of a 65-35 split, maybe a 70-30 because he has been playing well. He's been involved as a pass catcher, goal line back, all that stuff. 8,800 is tough. It's reasonable price. It's not the best matchup because Seattle's also good against running backs. This is a bottom 5 matchup for both situations. The difference and interesting thing is Travion Henderson's 3,800. And I know last game against Denver, they went all in with Ramondre holding on to the ball, which is surprising because of the fact that he has had fumbling issues in the past. But Travion Henderson barely touched the field. He was only on the field for 4 snaps. He had 3 touches on those snaps, but he was not involved at all. I think he's a very, very interesting low cheap play. And I don't know what his ownership will be. I'm intrigued to see what it is. But I am really interested at 3,800 for him because he can catch passes. I know he's only, in the last 6 weeks, only had, 4 targets? But he's been involved on the ground. Like, he had at least 10 opportunities in 4 straight games leading up to last week. And the game before that, I think the Baltimore game, he got concussed. But he started the game because he crushed the game the previous week against Buffalo where he had two breakaway touchdowns and he had 160 all-purpose yards. Concussed this game and then came back the very next week, had 19 touches after leaving the game due to concussion. And then decent splits of 13 opportunities, not 10 opportunities, 14 opportunities. I know he's not being very efficient, but rarely do you see somebody with the upside of having 10 touches be below 4K. And because he had that recent 3 carries for 5 yards, was not involved at all, only played 4 snaps, I don't know how many people are going to be flocking to him. Again, I'd rather play Matt Collins, but if I got to play multiple down low, I don't mind Travion Henderson at 38. I just want to point that out. I think he'll be lower owned than he should be for this price. I'm surprised that it's a 5,000 price gap. I just wanted to say that. All right. So let's play around a little bit, do some first looks. Again, all of our final lines will be posted about an hour-ish before kickoff. That's what we've been doing every year in the Discord. So in the description below, if you are not in there already. I think this is pretty straightforward with how I see this game. But again, just don't be afraid to get weird and get different, especially because in the Super Bowl, they raise the amount of entries, they raise the amount of prizes. So there's more likelihood that you're going to be duped. That's why I like playing smaller contests and being very, very different, because I don't care about not cashing by 0.5 versus not cashing by 40. If I'm not going to cash, it doesn't matter whether you're the 24th percentile or dead last percentile. It all matters on whether or not you cash. And if you're going to cash, you might as well take the chances and swings to maximize the cash. That's why, and how we've been able to take down 5 or 6 contests this year is being different, leaving salary on the table. Again, most people are going to be playing JSN and captain. Going to get into a look on seeing what I would do if I did that. So start like that. And we're going to kick it off with Seattle defense. And this is exactly how it kind of naturally fit. I immediately was able to force this in, but you get the top 3 Seattle guys. Travion Henderson as the last guy in, Matt Collins is a decent low-owned play, and then Seattle. So all three guys, it's a natural fit. Again, 200 is probably going to be duped, but I think that's a fun way to get different if you want to get even cheaper off stuff. You go George Halani instead of Travion Henderson, and then that not enough for Jacoby Myers, or it is enough for Cooper, but obviously we don't have a Patriot in there, so you'll have to get different somehow in some way. I think if I had to rank these four, or even five for that matter, I think Andy Borregales is dead last. He's been missing field goals. He missed multiple this past week. They are somewhat aggressive. I know he has a decent amount of 10-point fantasy days, but Jason Myers has been one of the most underrated fantasy kickers in all of football. He had a stretch this year where, what was it, between week 3 and week 16, he had a 17, a 14, a 10, a 10, a 15, a 15, a 13, a 19, a 14, and a 24 fantasy point day. I don't think New England's defense is bad enough to just only allow touchdowns, so I think field goals will be involved in mattering. So I'm going to be overweight to some Jason Myers. Booty, I'm fine with. Borregales, I think I'm going to take a stand and just play one kicker. Fine with Cup. Varner, I think I like slightly more than Cup just because of the $400 savings. But again, you got to fit a Patriot in there. And this one specifically, I'd say Matt Collins, and then pick your guy. To save more salary and you want a 5-1 build, you can stomach that. I think most people are going to be playing a 3-3 or a 4-2 build, going with a little bit more correlation with some Cooper Cup. Or I think this is a game where you need either a defense or a kicker. So go Jason Myers. You got 600 on the table. Jason at captain, stacking him with Sam Darnold. Got Kenneth Walker in there as a floor. And then again, Matt Collins, it's going to be hard to not play him at that salary for the opportunity. George Halani, really cheap, last guy in. Don't mind him, $600 remaining. And then you got a very safe floor for a kicker. I think that's very interesting. Let's do a Kenneth Walker captain. He's another one I think could be a popular captain. If I'm going to play JSN, let's try to see what we can do at quarterback. I'm going to put Sam Darnold in for now, but we can fit to Drake May if it's going to correlate a little better. But at the same time, actually, I'm going to put in Drake May because Kenneth Walker Day, how does he get to captain? Multiple rushing touchdowns. Well, how's it going to get or what is it going to be the result of a multi-rushing touchdown game in a lower scoring game in my estimation? That just means that Sam Darnold's not involved on touchdowns. So do you want to spend 10-8 for somebody not involved on touchdowns or only one? No. I'd rather go with the guy with a rushing floor if it's $200 difference. So let's put Drake May in this one. Play 3 of the 4 up top. But again, you're going to be playing Matt Collins. If you play Travion Henderson, that's enough for a Cooper Kupp. That's enough for A.J. Barner or even Andy Borregales. That's a 4-2 build if you went that route. Or you can go down from Travion, go to George Halani, and then that's enough for a Kayshon Boutte. That's fun. You have a double stack for the two highest snap count getters on the team. And then you also have 1,100 remaining on salary. I think you can get up to a JSN and captain if you want, or even Drake May. I would like to be the difference maker and say Kenneth gets 20, and then this is a floor from everybody else getting, the 8 to 10, and it'll get you there. That's a fun way to go about it. And if you don't want Matt Collins, you just want Kayshon Boutte in there, that's enough for Seahawks defense or a Rashid Shaheed down there as well. I know the divisional round, there was people that played him when he had that kick return touchdown and goes for 8.7 fantasy points. That still doesn't feel like enough, but it could get you there. In terms of a different look and a different approach, let's play devil's advocate, and we're going to go jam in 4 guys up top. I want to play, let's see, is it even possible to do this? I really don't think it is. Yeah, I mean, even if you played Seattle's defense, that you got a punt of 0. And I hate playing, if I'm playing a minimum price, I usually only do that. I usually only do that if I'm playing somebody exciting at captain. So I don't really love doing that. If you were to fade one of the quarterbacks, say it's Sam Darnold, you go down to a Stevenson or a Diggs. $2,400, that's right enough for George Halani. Again, it's not as fun, but you get the wide receiver one with Drake May. but Seattle's defense at captain doesn't correlate as great. JSN, I'm going to play there. If you're going to play Seattle defense at captain, I'm completely fine with the 0 remaining salary. And then all on top of that, you're going double Seattle running back in a tough matchup, which those kinds of approaches, it's usually fine going 0 salary. But again, that's how tough it is to get these 4 guys. So you went with the cheapest third, you went with one of the 2 quarterbacks, and you still were barely able to do anything at captain. That wasn't crazy. And I don't see anybody below, maybe a Matt Collins. Might be the only other guy cheap below 5K I'd consider a captain. That might be the only other guy because he might have a 12 fantasy point day. And if he does, that could be enough if you find the other guys. $3,600 last guy in, enough for Demario Douglas or Kyle Williams, not really interested. Or you can go back up from Diggs to Darnold, put a last guy in that's like Elijah Royal, assuming he plays. That doesn't sound exciting to me. I'd rather go more balanced. I'd rather have at least one defense or kicker in one of these lineups. So that's really the reason why I'm going to take the stand and probably fade Stephon Diggs, because head-to-head, I'd rather play Ramondre, and it's just really hard to fit 4 of these top 6 in there. So playing 3 of the 4 is probably going to be the Seattle guys or 2 of the Seattle plus Drake May is really the approach I'm probably going to be going. Let's get a crazy, weird game script. Like this is a 16 to 13 or a 19 to 16 kind of game. It's a field goal war or a field goal battle, defensive battle. How does that work out in an approach? So you got Jason Myers. Let's put in. Would you rather do? Let's do. I think I'd rather do both defenses and a kicker than both kickers and a defense. So say Patriots for 4, Seattle for 44. Both of them except for the Seattle championship game where the Rams didn't really force any turnovers. They've had at least double-digit fantasy points. I think it's very reasonable for both of them to be in the optimal line. And then, again, this is a kicker kind of game in a situation where we're getting floor plays. So let's throw those 3 in. We're going to put a high floor captain, or not only a high floor captain, but a high ceiling captain as well. So in the event that I do one of these 3 as flex plays, I'd rather do JSN or Kenneth Walker, a captain. So if I did that, that's enough for 99. Got some salary remainder. Probably don't want to do that. So I'd rather flip up to a JSN plus, let's say, Kenneth Walker, and then that's enough for Ramondre. So you got both running backs. You got JSN as a floor, wide receiver 1, but you're fading both quarterbacks. You're going double defense and a kicker. Again, that's a way that you can do little remainder and still feel decent about the lack of duplication of it. I think that's fun. I always think it's a little scary playing a captain without playing the quarterback, but to each of their own. I'm just trying to throw different looks out there. If you want to get even weirder, you can try to get up to one of those captains, but again, that doesn't really afford you anything. So it is very unique and different because it's hard to fit one of the 3 big guys up at captain and then be able to afford 3 guys. So that would mean it would be down to 2, and that just makes it a little weirder in your build. So you would probably do a Kenneth Walker. I can't fade JSN. I just can't do it. And I know there's ways to get down there. In the event of this, I'd probably do a floor play like a Travion Henderson. You can correlate like a special teams touchdown is going to happen. Rashid Shaheed gets there. You go Travion, Matt Collins. I think those 3 are the funnest plays in the below 5K range. And you can leave salary on the table with whoever you choose. Probably correlates a little better with Rashid Shaheed. But again, that doesn't make sense when you're playing New England defense and you're playing 5 Seattle Seahawks. So probably mess around with it a little bit differently. One more look before we get out of here. I'm going to show you what I would really do if I was doing a Seattle defense at captain. I'd probably start off doing that. And then I'd probably go to Jason Myers again. And then 5,800 last guy in. It has to be a Patriot. Kayshon Boutte is probably the guy to go to. And if you didn't like that, then you could probably go down to, Seattle's defense I don't think really opens up anything. I'm stupid. Seattle's defense is my captain. But if you win a Travion or a Matt Collins, that affords you Hunter Henry. If you want to do that, fine. I don't know if I want to do that, but you can. It basically comes down to Matt Collins / Travion plus Henry versus the Booty, who's on the field a lot, catching deep balls, solid opportunity share when he gets the ball, and then it comes down to what do you want to do. I think I side with Jacoby Myers over, or I think I side with Jason Myers over Cooper Kupp. But if you want to leave a little bit more salary on the table, I understand it. But more balanced build, so you don't go below 5K is the whole premise of this build. You get the captain Seahawks, $4,400, 10 plus fantasy point upside, and then you get the big three up top, and then Kayshon Boutte, who I would anticipate being one of the 2 highest owned Patriot pass catchers. Matt Collins, him might rival being the most owned, followed by a Hunter Henry, and Stephon Diggs by default, and then I don't know who's going to play Kyle Williams and Demario Douglas, but those kinds of guys are the ones that knock this kind of slate down. So that is all I got for you guys. I appreciate you keeping in touch and tuning in. If you have this far, once again, it's been a hell of a ride, hell of a 2025 season. It's been a whole lot of fun. I'm hoping for another fun Super Bowl game. Hopefully we profit. It's not as much of a sweat as it was last year, where I had to salvage with a garbage time touchdown by Xavier Worthy to get there. I'd rather be on the right side of the game script, and I feel pretty decent about this being a lower scoring game. Less confident about who's going to win, just because I'm on the public side, and I hate being on the public side. But let me know who your big must plays are. What's the Super Bowl props, the parlays that you're playing? Who you got in this game? What are you looking forward to the most? And on top of that, get ready to tune in for a bunch of draft and off-season content. Again, the rough draft, link in description below, is where we're doing a lot of our breakdowns of Combine, Senior Bowl, draft, mocks, all that fun stuff. And then off-season NFL content, purely like free agency reactions, power rankings, schedule reactions, breaking trades down, and all that fun stuff that happen is going to be on the GTD channel. And then once we get into the summer, we'll pick it back up with some best ball and some fantasy videos as well. So lots to look forward to. I know it's been a hell of a ride. Everybody's bummed about football being over, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a hell of a last banger of a takedown. And I'm excited for it. I hope you guys are too. And I will see you guys on the next one.